You cannot feel this energy.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Car Wash Magazine Live. I am your host, Matt DeWolf. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, this week we've got Luke Bathel going to be joining us from Rinse and Ride Car Wash out in Arizona. Luke's got 5 locations, working on building a really great organization out there, and so I'm really excited to kind of share his story with you all today and get into that. We're going to be talking a lot about how Luke is creating a culture there that is really going to drive community impact in a big way. So it's going to be a great show. If you've got questions, comments, concerns, write down in the feed here. Go ahead and get those questions queued up, and we'll get those answered for you as we go through the program. And let's just jump right in. So this week in Car Wash, friends, and this is what we've got going on for you. We're not going to talk about any mergers or acquisitions or new locations or anything like that this week. We're going to skip it for a week, just because. Why not? And so we've got a little bit of more than washing cars action, right? So Mike's Car Wash, $69,000 plus raised for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Super job. Mike's is always a great steward in the community and making a big impact there with lots of fundraising dollars. Having a big impact there. Nice job, guys. And then we've got our friends at Expresswash Concepts, or Clean Express, one of their brands. They raised more than $3,000 for a local school there. Reminder, this is on the heels of a $35,000 air freshener fundraiser campaign that they did, where they donated back to their community as well. So again, more than washing cars here. And then we've got Soapy Joe's, who you all may remember from their Tunnel of Love campaign we've talked about a few times. They were just honored with a Gold Stevie Award. That's a prestigious business award for their PR campaign. So kudos to our friends at Soapy Joe's for that. All right, so guess what else? What else we got this week? So we just dropped a new episode of Car Wash, the podcast, yesterday, and that's showcasing the Mammoth Holdings story. And so we spent about 10 minutes having a really high-level conversation with Gary Dennis and Rob Buchner from Mammoth Holdings, so you all can get the kind of backstory about what that entrepreneurial partnership is really all about. So check that out wherever you get your podcast content, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And then we've got, look, I would be remiss if I did not talk to you all really briefly about membership in ICA. It's time, friends. If you're not a member, the only way to make sure that you are getting things like this publication, or being able to watch these kinds of programs, your support helps, and you can support us in a couple of ways. It's not unlike your monthly unlimited plans that you may offer. You can do $10 a month per individual, $120 for the year, or there's some group opportunities available. Call it a family plan, if you will. So that's that. One more thing this week I want to talk to you guys about before we jump right into this here. You can see on the screen here, I've got it up as Mini MBA. What I'm talking about is the EMI program that the Car Wash Association puts on. So this is really an opportunity for some of the best and brightest to get together at a top-tier business school and get taught by some of that leading faculty and have this cohort experience over the course of a week where they can really kind of build on each other's knowledge and learn and grow and just become better professionals. And so great opportunity for folks out there. If you want to check that out, you got to apply quickly because spaces are filling up and only a handful remain. And the deadline is in today's May 13th. You've got 2 weeks, friends. So you should go do that now to make sure that you get that squared away and get yourself set up for success. So last week, we had our friend Jason Woodward on from Sudsy Salmon in Alaska, and we were talking a lot about talent. And we got into how he's kind of finding talent in a shallow talent pool. And so let's just show you real quick, in case you missed it, in case you were doing other things, let's just show you a quick clip from Jason right now.
I do all the Naval Academy recruiting for the state of Alaska. It's not really recruiting; it's more information management. And they have a program there called Community Influencers. And so those community influencers are high school coaches, counselors, people like that. And we use those people to, one, tell the story of the Naval Academy. And so we send them to Annapolis and show them what it's like. And then they come back and go, wow, this is a great opportunity. We should maybe tell some of our students that would qualify for this. So I kind of took that to the car wash world and said, well, why don't we do the same thing? We'll get a free fast pass wash for these guys, or a fast pass, and talk to them. And so my general manager and my facilities manager right now came from the high school wrestling coach, who is one of our community influencers. I've also got the the counselors. I have a few of those. And so whenever I go to a new market, I look to that and I start pulling from those people. And so then I end up getting a lot of like captains of the teams, things like that. And they can't work a lot early on, but they don't need to, it's not like a huge learning curve to prep a vehicle. And then the cream rises to the top, and they self-discover through a lot of our training that, hey, I think I want to be in a management role. We don't call our shift leaders, we call them shift captains. So it's more like sports team, captain of the sports team, which they relate to very well. And then there's no line, if you will, to move into these higher leadership roles. I call it more of a field, just like we are in sports. And so we pick the best from the field, and some guys just don't succeed in that role, and we give them a shot, they test out, and then they get moved back to something where they fit a little better. And, they seem to be much more receptive to that than I would say more mature people who tend to, when they get demoted, for lack of a better term, they move on. Our guys are like, yeah, it didn't work out for me. I didn't like being the captain, but I love washing cars. So we just move them around to get the right people in the right spots.
All right, so that was Jason talking about his Community Influencers program and what he does with the local folks there in Alaska to try and really get in front of top talent and make it so that Sudsy Salmon is a place that some of the best and brightest want to come work for those high school jobs and part-time jobs to kind of get some experience and get developed as they move on. So super job. Hey, look, if you guys are just joining us, this is Matt DeWolf. This is Car Wash Magazine Live. On today's episode, we've got Luke Bathel from Rinse and Ride Car Wash out in Arizona going to be joining us in just a few moments. We're about to see a tour from him in just a couple of minutes. But first, you guys know that this is my favorite part of the program. We got jokes. Now, I had said last week you guys had to listen to me tell jokes again, and that's because we didn't have any fresh submissions of people having their kids or friends or relatives or anybody else telling jokes. So it turns out someone sent one in. So here you go.
My name is Kana. I have a joke for you. Why shouldn't you write with a broken pencil? Did you know? Because it's pointless.
Did you get it? Because the pencil didn't have a point, so because it was broken, and yeah. Well, all right. Okay, guys. Here's the deal. we are going to turn that into a contest here shortly. I got to figure out the hows and whats and all that, but we're gonna either attach like a cash prize, or I'm gonna try to find my hands on a PS5 or something cool, so that we can reward the kids who are so graciously telling their jokes and sharing them with all of us here, and preventing you all from having to listen to me tell any more really bad ones. So, look, if you got ideas on how to make that contest happen, let me know, because I need some ideas. Anyway, without further ado, here is a tour of Rinse and Ride. All right, friends, there you have it. That is Rinse and Ride. And now in the flesh, we've got Luke Bathel joining us. Luke, welcome.
Hey, Matt, how you doing? Glad to be here.
Hey, you know, I love what's going on there with the mural that we see in there, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get into all of that and what you're doing in the kind of community side and what you're doing to create culture, can you just kind of share with everyone your path into car washing and how you got here?
Sure. It's kind of a longer story, but for our purposes here today, can hit the high points. But yeah, background's commercial real estate. So building office, industrial buildings, buying land, doing things of that sort. And back in 2011, and started an investment company, and was doing that, and it was great. But it was just me. I didn't have any employees. I had a lot of people in third parties and stuff like that. But I missed having a team and kind of collaboration and all that process. And so, in 2014, we had our second daughter, and my wife and I spent a lot of time with an organization called Young Life. And as we kind of looked at the company we'd built, it was great, but it wasn't providing much free time for us. And we weren't able to give back to many employees or things of that sort. So started looking at different businesses, came across car washing, and actually at first glance, didn't like it. I thought it kind of looked like a restaurant. I was looking at a full service model, and I was like, man, there's just stuff going on everywhere here. No thanks. And then came across the Express model and started to enjoy that, started to poke around, mapping all the competition out, kind of came up with the business plan, if you will, and then traveled around to find some people that are a lot smarter than I am in the industry, and kind of had them test some of my assumptions and financial models. And so come back home and tell my wife, said, hey, I think this has legs and I think it could be a lot of fun. So we prayed about it. This was a Sunday night. Monday morning, one of the banks that I had bought a lot of properties from in my previous company calls me and says, hey, listen, this is way out of left field, but you wouldn't happen to be interested in car washes, would you? And I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? So I go out and I look at it, and it's not a car wash. It's like used to be a car wash a long time ago. It's just, it was an acre of land. And so I called them and said, hey, you don't really have a car wash. You have some land here. And they said, well, what would you be willing to buy it for? And I kind of joked and told them a small amount over the phone. And they said, okay, great. Can you close in 2 weeks? And I was like, oh, wow. And so then it was, how do you fund it, right? Like, I've built a lot of stuff, but not car washes. And so getting financing was not going to be possible. So approached one of my existing investors at the time and told the story. And within 20 minutes, they said, hey, listen, always wanted to do this. We're all in. We'll fund the acquisition and the development. Let's do it. Okay. So that was on Tuesday. Now we get to Thursday, and I'm sitting next to my consultant at the time, and we're interviewing some people to run the wash, because I've never run one of these before. And I happen to be wearing a Young Life shirt. And the two gentlemen that we're interviewing look at it and they go, hey, you do stuff with Young Life? And I said, yeah, and we ended up talking about that for about a half an hour. And they said, well, we grew up without a father, and that organization really took care of us when we needed them. And then my consultant leans back in his chair and he goes, you got to be kidding me. And I was like, what? He goes, I started building car washes because I wanted to volunteer more for Young Life. And so, so that was the span of Sunday through Thursday. That is not typical, by the way. It's not as though I've got a two-way radio to God by any means. So when this did happen, it was like, okay, well, we better do something about this. And so we built our first one, and there's a lot of cool, ripple effect stories as to how the rest of them came about. And that's how it all started back in 2014, approximately.
Well, that's quite the leap, my friend. I mean, you went from nah, I don't know about that to to full speed ahead in like a week's time.
Yeah. And the part that was left out a little bit was there's probably about a year gap of kind of research and due diligence prior to that prayer, if you will. That was really getting to know.
Yeah, it's a more fun story if you just say, it took me a week to build a car wash.
Yeah, I figured it all out in 1 week, no problem.
Yeah, it's easy. This business is easy, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, famous last words, right? Okay, so you've always come at it from a place of like people, right? And for you, that's been, you were saying that you wanted to get into a business. You missed having a team. You wanted to build that up. What is it for you that makes that kind of work, or what makes it important in the car wash environment?
I've always been passionate about culture, and I think that's becoming more relevant, even much more so today than even 4 or 5 years ago. Because what you're seeing obviously is the aggregation, which is not a new business strategy, right? This happens across all real estate sectors when there's a lot of fragmentation. So we're seeing that everywhere, but inevitably when you see that, you see a loss of culture and identity, and those tend to suffer at locations. And great car washes that had really local feel to them, they had great culture, get taken over in large swaths, and a lot of times we'll lose that. And so I think the importance right now is just continuing to focus on that and having that be something that separates us. And it's not trying to hijack or short circuit that process, right? Like, it's a lot of people will go into it and say, we'll add a ping pong table. We'll cater lunch on Fridays. We'll, hey, guess what? Casual Thursdays. That's neat, but you can still have a toxic culture and environment and provide all those things. So it's, I think we'll get into it more later, but how do we holistically approach this business to serve our customers and specifically our employees with all the stuff that they're facing? And so that's been a really fun challenge and strategy.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that in just a second.
Yep.
I want to come back to right now something you said about that local feel, right? I know that's important to you. You're local to the area where you are building up your organization here. What is it about that local business, that local vibe that's important? And then how are you kind of pushing that forward?
Sure. So I think everybody enjoys shopping and doing things local and supporting people that they know and trust, right? So we take it to more than just marketing, right? So it's what you see on site. It's with the mural, it's the local artist. We have an employee garden. Our gardener is local to the Arizona market, and that's the only one in which they serve. Our strategic partnerships with Title IX schools that we help to try and get money, or places where we do market and do cross marketing to fundraisers. It's the schools within a 3-mile radius. It's Children's Cancer Network that's a mile away from our Chandler wash. It's kind of encompasses, again, kind of all angles of what we do from the local side. And I think that's, again, getting lost and helping while the market is becoming less local.
Yeah, I love the garden concept, because that's such an important piece. We're going to come to that in just a minute, but let's talk about the mural a little bit, because those of you who got to see the couple of clips that we showed in that tour, you saw this big, giant wall full of all these inspirational kind of sayings, and it's one thing to go do that and have a big blank wall and you slap your membership offer on it, right? Well, okay, great. Well, that's all about you. Or you slap up some promotion. Well, that's still about you. You guys, with this mural project, you wanted to really engage the community in that. Can you talk about how you guys kind of made the community part of that process?
Absolutely. And you hit on a good point at the beginning. Most of what we do, we try to make very, very little, if anything at all, is going to be about us, whether it be in marketing or stuff that we do on site. We're trying to make the heroes be our customers and our employees. And so, again, we're looking at this massive wall, right? Probably 50 feet wide by 20 feet tall. And we thought about a logo, we thought about, memberships, but we're like, in large part, who cares, right? Like, as you drive by that and you see it, it's not very, very interesting. It doesn't add a whole lot of value to the community. And then we, went down the road of, well, maybe we should do something Arizona centric. Let's make it about the 4 C's, copper, cattle, cotton, and citrus. And, we got pretty excited about that idea. And then again, we kind of got to the point where we started talking to some of our customers, and we kind of found who cares. And so, then we got into, okay, well, what about statements? And we started rolling with that idea. Truth statements that, regardless of your creed or religion or identity, these are just true, right? And these add value to anybody's day, regardless of where you're at in your life. And so we started assembling some of our favorite statements as a company, and got our management team involved. And then we're kind of set, and we're like, hey, let's go find a local artist. But then we thought about it and we go, well, that's still kind of about us. Those are our statements. So then what we did is we took it one step further and we said, what if we did a Facebook survey? We targeted all of our customers within a 3-mile radius and let them know that we were doing, like, hey, here's all these statements, 20 or 30 of them. Why don't you vote on your 10 favorite, because that's what we can fit on this wall. And that way it's about you and what you like and not about us. And by the way, if you want to add statements to it, do that. And those can get voted on as well. So we did that, had a lot of buy-in, which was great. And found our 10 statements that way.
I love that extra step, right? It would have been really easy to feel like you were doing something really like positive and good for the community, without ever asking the community, for their input. And you're right. Like that's almost there, right? But it still was going to be about you at the end of the day, because that was your stuff.
Exactly.
I love that approach. Talk to me about this garden. Like, why did you do a garden, and what does that do for your kind of employees and like their kind of mindset, and what's the deal there?
Sure. So it started off with my wife and I actually wanting one in our backyard and getting introduced to a local organic gardener. And my wife's like, yeah, I'd love to have this in our backyard. And we didn't really have room for it. And I was like, you know what? Well, where we do have room is at our car washes. And as we started to think about that, we kind of fell in love with the idea because, probably not unlike a lot of other car wash operators out there, our employment base is probably not eating a whole lot of organic. And to that extent, it's expensive. It's tough to find. What do you do with it? And so we called this lady in and said, hey, listen, can you meet me at a car wash? And she's like, well, why would I go to a car wash? And I was like, hey, trust me, just come here. And said, here's our thought or vision. Let's create, instead of 2 beds, why don't we do 8 beds here? We'll have you come in, kind of take care of it. And then this will be a benefit to our employees as a part of being a part of the organization. And we'll plant the things that they want to plant that they can take home. And we'll see how it goes. So that was about a year ago, and it's been great to see. I mean, a lot of the employees are watching it. They want to help out with what's being grown, and we're also learning as we go, because we'll do harvests and give the employees the bags of organic, vegetables and everything else, and then inevitably the questions came back like, well, A, what is this, and B, what do I do with it? Like, how do I cook this? And so we're like, oh, that's a good point. We're getting excited to, again, it was kind of like the mural, like we're most of the way there, but we kind of, unintended consequence of like, okay, well, how do you do that? So now we're trying to take that one step further and include, some recipes and be like, hey, this is a squash, and here's what goes well with this, and here's how you cook it. And so the goal is to start rolling those out to other properties. And part of it was just learning like how much food does 8 beds produce, right? And is that enough for one property or 2? Or but it's been really fun, and it's the employees, our team loves it and has buy-in and kind of helps out where they can there.
That's crazy. Who knew that the perfect place to grow food is at the car wash?
Yeah.
Hey, talk to me a little bit about kind of the other things that you're doing from a culture perspective, because you were touching on it a little bit there with, some of the socioeconomic backgrounds of the folks that are working at, some of the locations and are often kind of frontline workers in the car wash industry. There's the meal piece that you kind of touched on, and the food scarcity and the expense of that. You're also doing some stuff around financial literacy. Talk about that a little bit. I think that's really important.
Sure. So again, I think it goes back to this holistic approach. You can call it holistic marketing, or not marketing. You can call it just holistic care for the employees. Again, we're not unlike any other car wash that our people go through some pretty difficult stuff, on a weekly basis. And a lot of the comments that we would continue to hear is, hey, I'm having a hard time paying for this, or having a hard time paying for that, kind of regardless of where they are at on the pay spectrum. And, I think a lot of our people come from single parent households and some from broken homes, and just were never taught a lot of the stuff that some of us were afforded the ability to learn about and know through education. So we hadn't really found the platform that we liked. So we wanted to build out something that wouldn't be a threat for our employees to do on their own time. And what I mean by that is, you can you can say, hey, we're going to offer this Dave Ramsey course, and you go to it and it's 5 hours this day, 5 hours. One, they don't have the time for it. And two, a lot of them don't want to be exposed to admit that they don't know something. So we're in the process of building out a software that will hit on a lot of the topics that our people struggle with. And so the first one that we've tackled is financial literacy. So it goes into, it's an app-based system on their phone and on their computers, and they can learn about what is the value in understanding a budget. And then there's always a section on a now what section, right? Like you can believe that budgeting is a good thing, or that that mental health is a good thing, but now what? What's the next functional step of actually? And then that next step is actually creating their budget, and the system walking them through creating their first one, and how to watch it and how to engage with that budget with their household. And so that was the first of many sections that we're working on getting to, because that typically is one of the biggest conversations that we have on site is around financial literacy. And now it's quickly transitioning to, mental health, right? So especially with the onset of COVID, was okay, how are we handling anxiety and depression? How are we speaking to that? How are we divorce, just the myriad of topics that come up on a weekly basis, and how do we actually respond to that, aside from just telling people, hey, let us poke around, or this kind of leads into, and let me know if I'm getting ahead of myself here.
You're good.
This gets into our Chaplain Program. So when we were a smaller company, myself and a couple others talked to our employees on a pretty regular basis, and we were able to speak into their lives and walk through difficult times with them. But as we've grown, it's just not possible. And to a certain extent, inherently, there was some conflicts of interest in that, right? Because if an employee is talking to their site manager, they're talking to me, and they're sharing some really tough stuff in their life, and a few weeks later, for whatever reason, they may have to be let go. They may say, well, that's because I shared something tough with you, and the site manager may say, well, no, that's because you did no call, no show 4 times in a row. So it was a little bit of trying to solve that as well. So probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we brought on a couple different chaplains, and they visit the sites, I think every other week, get to know the team. And it's one of those programs that gets better over time, because they're essentially earning the right to be heard, right? No one wants to open up to somebody that they just met. So this chaplain organization that we use, again, is app-based. They can reach them on their phones, but they're trained. Most of them come from military chaplain background. So they've walked through very difficult stuff with people that are in the armed forces. But it also gives them a safe place to talk about this, where they can't actually share anything that is discussed with anybody on property, right? So you've gotten rid of the conflict of interest, and they're trained on this. So much of our site managers and assistant site managers' time we see on a weekly basis is engaging with the rest of their team on very personal stuff that's tough for them. And that's not necessarily an inherently bad thing, but they're not trained for that. That's not their field. And they also don't have the resources to tell that person where to take the next step. So it takes up a lot of time on site, and it doesn't really help the person going through the tough life circumstance very much. And, I've heard some organizations and people say, well, you just keep your personal life at home, and when you get to work, you just put on your work hat. And anybody that has a functional company knows that's BS. Everybody that anyone going through a really tough life circumstance, it's going to affect your work and what you do in one way, shape, or another. You may be able to compartmentalize that for a short amount of time, but that's not a real healthy strategy over the long term.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Luke, what I'm hearing really come out of all of this is that, and we talk about this a lot in this program, but if you put the people first, and you put the needs of your people first, creating culture is really not that challenging, right? I mean, we're talking today, we talked about a garden program. We talked about a mural on the site, instead of, putting up marketing materials that kind of helps people kind of feel better and feel good about the place that they come to work and the impact that that's having. And then this concept of just giving people the resources that they need, from financial literacy to mental health, all these kinds of things, really, I think at the end of the day, show that you guys care about your people. And I'm thankful that there are people like you in the industry. I think that there are a lot of us who are working it that way. And so I just want to say congratulations on the success so far.
Yeah, thanks. And I'd love to see this turn into a longer, by no means do we think we're the best at this either, right? There's probably companies that are, far beyond what we're accomplishing. And I'd love to see more collaboration within the industry. We connect with a couple other operators and talk about this stuff, but I think this is, again, only that much more important in a post-COVID environment. And we'd love to hear from other operators that are doing and care for their teams the same way. And I'm not in this to try and reinvent the wheel. If someone's got something they're doing great, let's reapply, and vice versa. We're a pretty open book on what we're doing and how we can implement those same strategies at other locations. So I'm going to be at the Southwest show if anybody wants to talk there, or I can. They can obviously find my contact information probably through you in the show notes. But yeah, I'd love to see this become a bigger conversation and dialogue going forward. For sure.
Well, hey, Luke, I'm gonna let you get back to the business of washing cars and building culture.
Great. Well, I appreciate you having me on here. This is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Hey, guys, watching at home, if you want more stories like that and you want more tips and tricks and ideas for inspiration, you can watch all the episodes of Car Wash Magazine Live at carwashmagazine.com or on YouTube. Or, if you want to just scroll through Facebook all day, you can do that too, and you can watch them there. Everything is there for you to see. If you've got a story that we need to tell or a great idea, let me know at mdewolf@carwash.org. Otherwise, guys, gals, when you're out there, keep it clean.
I'm just having a good day, having a good day.